is Sunday night, 9 p.m. My name is Scott Churchson from Stream Punk Entertainment. Alongside me, as always, is Mr. Halen Haru from Five
What?
Borough Footy. This is MLS Sportswriters React to NYCFC facing off against Minnesota United. This was a match that fell behind really faster than it takes for me to pee, and and the team never recovered, never picked up, and never got back on its feet pretty much the entire way through, scoring one goal 89 minutes in by Keaton Parks. But once again, losing by one and losing in a pretty rough fashion, in this case 2-1.
Oh, Scott, I couldn't disagree more, sir. But we'll
really?
unpack it. Yeah, let's go. We'll go on.
Okay.
Basically, I feel like to your point, yeah. But we lost control pretty early, and to go behind that quickly was a hard hit, especially then to go down by a second goal. But I think the subs that Pascal made in the 40th. And just whatever he shouted at them in the locker room at halftime, I think they all had collectively a much better second half than
they did.
The first.
And the funny, I don't know about you, but it seemed like in a weird way the fire that lit under their ass was Alonso Martinez missing the PK. Because if you notice, right after, suddenly there was this sense of urgency, like, oh God, we just lost what was our gimme. We got to bump this up a little bit here. So
yeah. And funny enough, it makes you wonder, like, if he makes that shot, if he makes that penalty, it's 2-2. They've come back from 2 down.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a game of such slim margins. And to your point, last year, if something like that happens, it deflates the team completely. They don't find a way back into it, but somehow they still kind of managed to hold the ship together. And they still had a pretty good second half. So
they did have a good second half there, but again, when you fell down 2-0 that early, I think it was one of those things. I forget who I was talking to my left during the press conference, but it felt like Minnesota was playing back a little bit just to hold on to the 2-1 lead. The same thing that I think NYCFC has been guilty of. They were sort of playing a little bit too, which allowed NYCFC a better chance. Because to their credit, NYCFC did have, I believe, 25 shots overall. Only 4 on net. But they had 25 shots, which I don't know. The team record, I know, is 31, in a match. That I can tell you. But it just took forever before they even got a shot literally on goal. Their 17, I think their 17 shot overall was the first one on net.
And to my knowledge, the team NYCFC also had 70% of possession. So what that tells me is, like Alec said in his piece earlier this week. He said Minnesota was they tend to defend in a low block 5, right? And teams that do, and especially against a team like us who we possess the ball more. When a team does that, they're daring you to pick them apart. They're daring you to try to figure out a way through the block. And
by the way, I just want to say thanks to Joseph for subscribing just now. So that's why from the comments up, and also throwing thanks out there as well. So
they were daring us to figure out a way through the block, but unfortunately, I mean, with all due respect to Maxi and Keaton, the midfield just doesn't have enough to really kind of do that properly or efficiently. And so all they had to do was wait for, one bad pass or one good giveaway, deep in their third, and they could just hit us on the counter because they have these 2 rapid strikers. And credit to Thiago and Burke. They still, not just Burke, but Tana had a good game. Credit to the back line in general. They still kind of held firm, but that first goal was exactly that. It was, let's just give them the ball, let's weather the storm, and hit them quickly on a counter, and that's exactly what they did.
It was one of those things where right off the bat you can see how fast Minnesota was in those moments. Because there was a couple of turnovers in NYCFC's zone right out of the gate, and as a result, you could see Minnesota realizing they can pounce here.
Yeah,
and when you have
for sure.
someone like Oluwase, who's now at 5 goals, by the way, in his last 3, which is
Hmm.
just, he now leads the team. Yeboah had 4, and
Hmm.
then out of nowhere, he's just like, nope, I'm taking it back.
Yeah.
So honestly, he could become the guy, for the potentiality of Golden Boot. I'm not going to dismiss this right now. The way he's playing, if
Yeah.
that can continue, there's a possibility he might actually have it. So,
Yeah. Some honestly, sometimes it really is just that simple. It's just a rapid guy who has composure. You don't even have to be so technical or just the most amazing, most talented guy. You really just have to. You can just be a rapid dude who knows how to keep his calm in the right moments.
yeah,
And that's it.
I mean, it's funny if you look at the stats on this match here.
Hmm.
I mean, 20, like I said, 25 shots to
Yeah.
16,
Yeah.
4 on net, which is not brutal, but 74% percentage rate, possession rate
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, for the
And
most part, it's pretty much right. 9 corners. You have 9 corners.
And
You
to
know,
the and to Joseph's point, he says here possession without production is pointless. It's it's no, but
only, yeah,
it's 100% true.
yeah,
Like having the ball is not enough. You have to take some risks with the ball
so,
to get it into spaces, to create trouble, to create chances on goal. And that's not to say that there aren't guys who are willing to take risks. There are, but being willing and being capable and consistent is 2 different things. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And I don't know how consistent the guys in the midfield right now are at
You know,
taking those measured
here's,
risks.
I mean, I want to throw a quick comment up here from Joseph. The worst center backs, not necessarily, but I will say this: how much do they end up actually absolutely missing Tavon and James Sands right now?
Quite a bit.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean, a lot of this could be
particularly
different if
Jimmy.
it wasn't that. So,
Particularly Jimmy. Particularly Jimmy. I think
yeah,
Jimmy is defense is so much more nuanced than just
hmm
center back run fast kickball. It's way more. It's way more than that. It's how you possess the ball, how you react to when you give up the ball. Like, and Jimmy is one of the best I've ever
hmm
seen in the league, really, at knowing how to lurk in those passing lanes and regain possession and just kind of pounce on an errant pass or just a slightly too lazy pass to get us back on the front foot.
hmm
Um, and I think we're missing that a little bit. Like Keaton is good at that as well, but what he doesn't have that Jimmy does is Jimmy is athletic enough to cover a lot of ground.
hmm
Whereas, like, I don't know if Keaton really can cover as much ground. He has the instincts and IQ to do that, but athletically, I don't know if he can keep up with what that requires.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this match, and this is like I said, we talked about this earlier on. There's no guarantee if Alonso converts that PK. I mean, it changes, like I said, the mental dynamic of this match in a big way,
Hmm.
because again, once he smacked that thing off the crossbar, suddenly the team suddenly woke up and realized, oh shit, we just lost like our golden chance to cut this lead in half, and suddenly for like the last 4 minutes of the first half, you saw this team come alive, and um, it was one of those things that I think it's just they saw the opportunity and they assumed it was a gimme. I mean, the whole thing, with VAR, which by the way, I got a comment back. By the way, I did actually. You know
Hmm.
what? We'll get to the Tavon question in a second. I
Hmm.
did get an official statement, by the way, from the Professional Referees Association
Hmm.
about what they were checking in that moment.
Hmm.
Um, the way, by the way, Esteban Camino, who's the PR guy, he's like, "Thanks
Hmm.
for sending this over." The answer was underwhelming, and yes, it was, because what they wrote back was what they were checking in that VAR moment, or that the video review. The referee was checking to see if there was a foul and who made contact with the ball. Thank you, referees, for giving me the most in-depth, most detail-oriented answer you could have given me for like the 19-minute wait that video review happened to be.
To
Usually,
answer, go on, what?
no, I was going to say, usually they're like, well, we were looking at this, checking the feet, things like that. They were like, we're seeing if there was a foul. Why are you
No.
asking this? Just go away.
To answer his Tavon question, funny enough,
Yeah, yeah.
after the mix zone, we rode the elevator up with Tavon.
You did? Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. And we asked him, about that. He said, well, I thought I was going to get some minutes, but, apparently the game state didn't, seem to require him or his services. So, he was a little disappointed, but he's looking forward to maybe getting some minutes in upcoming games. He basically, for all intents and purposes, he said he's healthy and he's ready,
So you might get minutes next week, especially
there's
there's one less day of rest too.
Mm-hmm.
One day doesn't make a ton of difference, but every
day
can help.
Yeah.
But okay, against Philly, that could make sense there because he does have a long history with Philly as well. Could help there. So you rode up with Tavon. I rode up with Thiago. So I did, by the way, and this is something I'd mentioned to you guys. I did mention that I have post-game comments that we had recorded. I have Justin Hack, I got Kevin O'Toole, I got Micha. So I'm going to throw one of them up there if you want me to.
Yeah, let's run through them. All
right, let's start with Kevin, or start with Justin in this case here.
Okay.
This came basically right after the match was over. We had done the press conference with Pascal. I'll post the press conferences tomorrow. But this is what they call the Nick Zone, where it's a chance to just ask questions, have them answer it, or anything like this. So here we go.
This has actually been a topic we've been talking about a lot, just trying to get rid of easy turnovers that lead to other teams for chances. And I think halftime was really just about bringing the urgency up because it was very clear we started the game way too slow. But I think we brought some guys in early that kind of jumped the team a little bit. We got the penalty in the first half, and we created more chances going into the second half. So I think it was just focused on the urgency. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult for everybody, but the only way we're going to solve it is in the locker room. I think you have to look at each game separately. This is a game where we came out way too slow and they played perfectly into Minnesota's hands because we know they don't care about the ball. They just want to defend. But we can just look at this game, analyze it, and we know we're going to have a tough game versus Philly coming next week. So it's going to be a good opportunity for us to get back in the right way. I'd just say keep your composure. Like, even in a game like today when we go down 1-0, I think we lack composure in the start of the game. And if you just kind of keep that kind of level head and bring the urgency up in the game, then we'll be able to figure it out.
So,
I do want to speak a little bit about Justin's game.
Okay.
Not just today, but in general. Justin's improved first and foremost. Mm-hmm. He's not been bad. He's not had a bad record of play.
He's becoming a leader at this point.
Yeah, I feel, however, that how a lot of people felt about the Tallis number 9 experiment is how I feel about the Justin Hack number 6 experiment. Right? Sure, in theory, it works, but in practice, when you watch him, he seems uncomfortable. And what I mean by uncomfortable, and that's the word I use, because to play that role, to play in zone 14, to play with your back to goal in one of the deepest areas of the pitch, right? Or on the half turn in one of the deepest areas of the pitch, you have to be comfortable. Mm-hmm. You have to be comfortable making decisions. You have to be comfortable with your first touch. You have to be comfortable in and out of tight spaces. And I don't know if that's in Justin's locker or it really ever will be. And that's okay, because as a center back, he is exceptional. He's very good in the air. He anticipates things defensively very well. And he's extremely athletic and can make up a lot of ground if positionally he makes an error. And while those things might read as useful at the number 6, it takes a lot of those skills and the comfortability on the ball in those tight spaces, in those moments, mm-hmm. because the attack really kind of starts there, right? When we recover the ball, it's cycled through that position a lot of the time. So if we look back, I'm going to rewatch the game, but it seems to be the same thing a lot of the times with Justin, that he struggles when picking the right pass, and mm-hmm. at least when he doesn't have time and space to do so. And I'd like to see that number 6 experiment kind of come to an end. I understand we don't really have many options. I kind of would vote for Keaton to perform in that role, because I think he would do exceptionally well at that role. But yeah, I understand why they use him there, but it's not my favorite thing that is done with him right now.
But like you said, what options do you have right now?
Right.
You're going to have to either bring someone in from the outside, or wait for some NYCFC2 player to come in and get ready. You're looking at a year, 2 years easy.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
and that's why Davi made a comment earlier about bringing in a 10. Ironically, I actually would prefer to bring in like a blue collar number 6, like not a big name guy, not an expensive guy, but I would rather a guy who's a workhorse, who takes pride in hard work, who takes pride in doing the dirty work in midfield, who takes pride in holding shape and doesn't need to get forward and doesn't need to score goals. Pereira is a very goal hungry kind of guy, even though he profiles or is listed as a 6/8. He is a very forward minded player, and I think that that doesn't really it doesn't win you a lot of favor with many coaches, at least coaches that know what they're doing. So I would rather than bring in a very industrious, blue collar minded type of number 6 to come in and just do the things that Johnny Shore actually is really good at, but just at the level of an adult, Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like I was going to say David Lee and Entourage are like, well, we're getting Johnny these minutes because he's going to be the face of it going forward. But that's still 2 years, I'd say, easy.
Yeah.
Before get him out of the teen years into like 20 years old. Maybe you can start looking at it from that perspective. But it almost feels like this is something that the team is okay with running with. Just let these kids develop and grow and just accept it for what it is. Now, I mean, you and I did talk about the whole relegation thing, and that's a conversation maybe for another time. But if relegation was a thing, they probably would be a lot more forward and being like, we're going to try and find bodies here.
Yeah, if there was real stakes.
Yeah, there's no sense. It's funny, during the press conference tonight, Pascal Janssen talked a lot about sense of urgency. That was like his buzz phrase, if you will. That's why he made the substitution 40 minutes in, because right out of the gate he's like, I saw no sense of urgency. But then you saw basically what he did at 40 minutes in, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now there's energy, now there's vibe.
Yeah, something about that urgency is, I think we lost a bit of that with Jimmy. Like Jimmy's a soft-spoken, nice guy, but on the pitch, Jimmy,
he was like towards the top of the league last year in tackles, I think.
Yeah, he was.
I forget the numbers, but he was towards the top. Yeah,
he was top 3, and Jimmy's just one of those guys who adds bite, and that's why I love the Tana substitution. Even though I kind of sold my stock on Tana, Tana won me back a little bit with his game today because he came in and added missing bite, and it makes me kind of also. It made me glance over at Thiago, not to beat a dead horse, but like Thiago is he's a clinical defender. He's efficient. But sometimes you'll want a guy to just be an MFer. You know what I mean? You want a guy to like, I think one of his first
tackles. You need your Jamie Tart.
Huh?
You need your Jamie Tart if you're going to use a Ted Lasso reference.
Tana made a tackle and a guy went down and immediately went over and started picking the guy up off the ground as if to say, "Stop! You're like." I love that. I love that because it's, you know what, hurt or not, I don't care. You're on the opposite team. Get up. Like, and it feels like we're a little bit too polite, a little bit too gentlemanly across every. All the guys, they're a little bit too nice to the opposition. Well,
Thiago, like I said, here's the way. It's funny. I was talking to you about this when I was up at NYCFC on Friday. There was a weird vibe in the air, and I thought maybe it was because the Atlanta match was still running in their head. But you know what I think it was? Have you ever, either when you're a kid or maybe when you're an adult, have you ever walked into a room where an argument had just happened? And everybody is just like, no, nothing happened. And you're like, you can just smell and just feel like this weird vibe in the air. It's like basically when you walk in, your parents just had a massive argument and you're a little kid and you're walking in. It's like, no, mommy and daddy aren't fighting. And it's like, yeah, you are. That's what it sort of felt like on Friday. I couldn't place my finger exactly what the vibe was.
You know what it is? I don't know if you've ever owned a cat, but I have two cats. and they used to they don't do it anymore, but they used to fight. But they would always wait until me or my wife weren't in the room or watching to fight. But we'd always hear them, and then I would usually come check, and then one of their tails would be fluffed up, and they would be like, so you know what I mean? The signs would be there that there was conflict going on. So I know what you're saying. It's like you can always tell in body. It's really more in the body language and how guys are responding. The subtle cues of how people are responding to each other, that you can tell that there's some sort of conflict there. It was nice to see Maddie.
This week would have been great for them that way, to get rid of what happened with Atlanta.
Yeah, to kind of dump all that negative energy out. Yeah, but to that point, Maddie and Thiago seemed. It was nice to see that they were like, dapping each other up and supporting each other. And when one would make a good play, the other one would come over and be like, "Yo, good play!" Like, because ultimately, on that back line, on that back five, Maddie and the back four, those two are the ones that rely on each other the most. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's Maddie and Thiago. What Thiago can't do, Maddie does. What Maddie can't do, Thiago does for him. And they need each other, the two sides of the same coin. So if that relationship deteriorates, they can't do their job, right? Yeah. So it was nice to see them kind of seem to get back to.
They're both veterans in their own ways, and they've been around. They've dealt with all of it. So they also understood the emotions happen. Normally they happen in the locker room, and they happen in private. So usually, you don't see this kind of thing where it's that public. But these are guys that can take care of something like that quickly. It's just one of those things that, like I said, it left a weird vibe on the rest of the team, because those are the two you don't expect it to happen with.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, you got these stoic guys that are leaders on and off the pitch, and they're fighting with each other. So you get some new kid there, like a Johnny, or even I would say like Micha or Kariza, and they're looking at this thinking, okay, what's going on? And they understand, but they don't understand.
Yeah.
And that's
it's like I said, I think the nice part about that is it feels as if, like, once again, I'm sorry to bring him up, but when Nick was in charge, because of his hands-off approach, he would treat them like latchkey kids, right? So I think he kind of left the disciplinary actions of the team up to the senior members of the team, right? Again, up to the senior members of the team. And that, without, I don't think he realizes this, or any coaches like that realizes this, but what that does is it doesn't keep the team unified, because they don't defer to a higher authority, right? Whereas like Pascal, I think, is a complete opposite. I don't think he's like fire and brimstone, but I also do think that he's the final say and insists on being the final say when it comes to discipline, as evidenced with the Ojeda thing, the Ojeda's replacement, late game replacement, not late game, but you know what I mean, pre-game replacement. And I just think like he's happy to be the judge and the jury of these types of things, and the guys, I think they're happy to have that authority. They're happy to have somebody that is an appropriate authority figure. So
and you look at like I said, I think what I think it is. I think Pascal Janssen is this weird blend of both Ronnie Dyla and Nick Cushing. Where Ronnie Dyla was basically this impassioned, fired up, again, half-naked push-up.
Yeah.
And then, Nick Cushing was, I think you referred to him as, the fun uncle.
Yeah.
Whereas the balance between the two is sort of the Pascal Janssen, where he will occasionally throw his energy and excitement and fire in there. He will be the supporter, but it's like, and he even said it tonight, he's like, the team comes first before everyone, including me.
Yeah.
So that was
I would actually think of it in quadrants. There's I think Dyla is a firm but fun, whereas like Nick is loose but fun, and Pascal is not fun but firm.
Yes.
Right. And I don't know. I think they're actually three completely separate guys, and this team needed a Pascal to come in. Like, Pascal is not going to embarrass anybody. Like, even today when asked about the set piece goal, right, the little trap goal,
Mm-hmm.
He said flat out, he said somebody fell asleep on their assignment.
Yes, he did say that.
And that to me is a level of honesty I adore, because it what it does is it lets you know if that's what you were suspecting as an observer. Okay, I'm not crazy. Somebody did fall asleep. Somebody had a lapse of judgment, right? And there isn't this illusionist attempt to try to pretend as if nothing's wrong or nothing went wrong. It was just a freak occurrence. No, it was, he said, if somebody fell asleep on their assignment, he didn't throw anyone under the bus, which I love, right? He protected them, right? But he was honest about what happened there. And he also, and I love that he also threw in the nuance of errors like that happen all the time, right? And most of the time, you don't get punished for it. And this was one of the few times that we got punished severely for it. And I love that, because it also shows you, it shows the people who might not understand the game from his side of it, that it's not black and white when it comes to errors. Like, errors constantly happen, and really we just get lucky. It's like Russian roulette in a weird way. Yeah.
Now,
let's see what they're saying here.
Yeah, I was gonna say basically, Tana's a goon. Actually, I got a post game quote from Tanasiewicz. I didn't even use it because it was just like that short. Tiago, we've been down that road already. Philly, we're going to talk about Philly. I mean, there's a couple comments in here regarding the Philly,
For sure.
Philly match. Now I will say short version right now is Philly's on a little bit of a spiral because they're 1-2-1 in their last 4. So Tyboribo is falling off the map a little bit right now. He's still leading the team with 6 goals, but he has slowed down a fair bit. So this might be something where both teams can use this as a match to right the ship.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
I mean, they had a 0-0 draw today. They lost to Inter Miami 2-1. They lost to Nashville. They won 1-0 against somebody. I forget who it was. But short version is they flew out of the gate, and now they're struggling a little bit. So you got 2 teams right there that need a struggling opponent and are getting one. But so
Tana is a good. I want to address that.
But it's still Philly. I'm aware, but it's Philly under Bradley Cornell, so the rules are going to change a little bit. But it's interesting to see what happens in a match like this because, like I said, both teams could benefit from this. But both teams, I think, have pretty solid experience with City. Was it 2 years ago or last year that Philly played in City and won 3-1? I forget what it was. It was one of the last 2. But yeah, right. Tyboribo with a hat trick.
The Tana's a goon comment. I love that because,
thank you, by the way. Thank you.
Like I said, we're kind of missing that. We're sort of missing that from the team. I like, he said he was tasked with serving in a good ball in the dying moments. It failed spectacularly. It wasn't the best ball. It was actually kind of a terrible ball. But looking at a film of him before he came into the team last year, that's kind of his bread and butter, ironically. That's one of the things he was really, really good at his previous team. So, not every pass is going to be perfect, right? Maxi, speaking of Maxi, I do want to kind of unpack Maxi with you a little bit.
Okay.
Last year, the same things were being said about Maxi. Could he still contribute at his age? Is he, is the injury going to slow him down? All this. I think Maxi's performance overall last year actually exceeded our expectations, and I think we should all be honest about that. Maxi was very, very good last year, and did it all.
How much does he have left in the tank?
I think now what we're starting to see the rust is showing, and it's hard to admit that because
I was surprised he even came back this year. To be honest with you, I thought last year was going to be the swan song.
Yeah, but Maxi loves his club, and he knows we need him. He knows we need him. So Maxi, there's certain. It's not even the moments like how fast he runs with the ball on the counter, or anything obvious like that, like goals and assist productions. It's more like the tiny moments, like what how he handles receiving the ball under pressure, how quickly or how nimble he is on the turn with the ball, how errant a touch might be. It's just there's a little bit of rust that's showing there, and it's definitely concerning.
Yeah. So I'm gonna throw up. I'm gonna toss up Meech's comments here at this point too. Why not? We'll get a little input from Meech Ilinich on see what happened here. A little shorter this one.
So when you start the game the way we did, like there is not too much to talk about. Like it's just not acceptable. Obviously, now we are not aware why it happened. To be honest, so we need to go through the game, make some conversations with all of us together, and just make sure this never happens again. Because like you saw, second half, we really pressed them, really attacked them, and this is the way we should start again. This was our plan, but yeah, it did not go how we wanted, and yeah, but we have to keep our heads up and go next week with this.
Yeah. By the way, do me a favor. Let me know in the comments if that is loud enough. I spiked the audio a little bit higher, but let me know if you want me to bump it up a little bit more, because this is the first time I'm trying to do something like this. So let me know either way what you guys think. If you want me to bump the audio up and pump up the volume.
What a reference. Micha gave a typical, NYCFC press officers recording me off screen.
Yeah.
Answer,
it's always funny because people don't realize this, but there's actually a mic underneath them by some of the other, employees that are recording that audio too. So it's not just for us, but it's for like official team releases too.
Right.
So all the stuff that they send out to us after the match is over. But yeah, in this case here, because sometimes that audio in the mix zone could be a little wonky. So with the Kevin one, you're going to hear the audio dip out because I had to do some audio correction on it. But yeah, let me know basically, like I said, if the volume's okay, which so far it seems to be, but I don't know. So ask him. So.
Micha had this is one of his shakier games, unfortunately, but it happens.
Like I
He's
said,
been good all season, actually.
The team fell behind, like I said, inside of a minute. That was the exact dead. I mean, you and I talked about it. I think we had just eaten, and I think both of us were just like, the exact thing the team does not need right now is to fall behind one, let alone two. And what do they do? They fall behind one and then two.
And it was very obvious what their game plan was. They knew what side they were going to attack down. Kevin has been exceptional at emergency defense and recovery and picking his moments correctly. So
this is good, by the way. I think you might have something there too.
What with this?
Yeah, Maximum making some time with too.
They weren't going to attack down Kevin's side. They were going to, concede the ball to us. They know what our passing patterns are. They know that our fullbacks get high and that Mitra really gets high. And that's exactly what happened. He was, we conceded the ball high up the pitch. He was also very high up the pitch, left that wing wide open, and they just attacked us. I think it was 3 passes. It was 3 passes at most. Very direct. They knew exactly what they needed to do. And Burke obviously, couldn't do much on that, not with that type of pace behind him on the backside. So, yeah.
But I think, like I said, looking at the team right now where it stands, all the quotes are pretty much the exact same. I mean, Kevin had a real short one, but
first 15 minutes was just too slow and too flat. And we need to learn from that. When you concede a goal in the first 2 minutes at home, it's always trouble.
So that's all I've got from Kevin, because that's all he basically gave. He's like,
I strongly disagree with Joseph's take there. Actually, I think Kevin's actually really improved. His improvement started since last year. The numbers don't lie. He's one of the top. He's one of the most efficient crossers of the ball into the box. Completes some of them. He's top 3 for completing the most passes into the box. He's just a good, workable, functional left back. And one of the weak points that he had was his recovery speed and his just positional IQ of knowing when to go and when not to go. And he's even gotten a lot better at that. And obviously last year, another thing that he started being really good at was playing sort of inverted and coming into midfield sort of as a pseudo number 8, and being really good on the ball and not conceding possession. So yeah, I respectfully, I disagree with that. I think Kevin is very, very, very good.
I think Kevin's okay. Like I said, I think he's coming around. It's just a progress, like with a lot of the players that's going on right now. So just give it time in this case. But I think also people are just sitting there, just like, we're tired of just the struggle. I don't know about a lot of these guys, but
we're tired of spam sandwiches. Is what we're tired of.
Yeah, but I mean, the comment here is like, Mata, to Goody, to Malty, to Kufre, to Kevin O'Toole, and Malty basically, they let him go. He goes to Columbus, he wins.
No, he is actually lefty.
Yeah,
he is actually lefty. That's what made him the most appropriate. See, this is kind of what I meant, Scott, about.
yeah,
but
what did I do? What did I do?
Malta's been good. But nonetheless, basically, I just feel like it's not left back is not an emergency spot for us. The most dire needs are in midfield. The 6 and the 8 for sure. Like, we have Keaton, but he can only do but so much. We have Johnny, but he's 17.
Yes.
Yeah, and Maximo is, touted to replace Maxi, but
again,
that's
young. You need time. You need a couple of years there.
Yeah.
He's not getting a ton of minutes, if at all, really right now. But again, if Tavon can get some time, 10, 15 minutes, get those legs back, there's 2 winnable road matches after that. You got New England, you got Toronto. So you have winnable matches there against teams that are struggling that could help you get back into the win column fairly quickly if you don't pooch it.
He's good as KP Maximo. He's good, but he's small, and that's probably an extreme oversimplification of his strengths and weaknesses. He's good, but he's small
and inexperienced. Yes, but I want a 10 in his prime. Yeah, that would require outside assistance, and I'm not sure if that's going to happen. Because there's just no drive to just get that person.
I want to talk to you about Kevin De Bruyne.
Okay.
This team deserves a high profile player. And it needs a player of his profile. When I say his profile, I mean like what his skill set, what he brings, his passing range, his ball retention, things like that. And man, that would just be such a dream signing. It won't happen, but it would just be such a dream signing.
I mean, his obviously the experience you've got with Man City and all that kind of stuff is possible, but I don't.
My favorite thing about Joseph,
with the front office, I will believe anything when I see it. This is not like. I'll just make a joke out of this. If George Steinbrenner were in charge, or Uncle Steve Cohen. If Steve Cohen was in charge of this team, that would be a totally different ballgame.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're not looking at right now. Like I said, I think the team. You've seen this, especially since 2023, when you had the turnover of the roster of all the guys that left, Maxi at the time, Sean Johnson, Chanel. You saw them bringing in a bunch of young guys, but you haven't really seen like that killer that they used to have. And the killers that they had, Totti was a killer, and then of course went to Verona. Santi was developing into it to some degree, but a less of a killer and more of an assistant killer. Let me put this another way. He didn't have that vibe to him there. He can get the job done. Gabby Pereira, I think, had some of that.
Gabby Pereira has that dog in him.
Yeah, the dog is better. Yeah, but you don't have that guy who's like, oh shit, they're there.
Yeah, they're constantly a threat. They're constantly a looming threat.
Yes.
You don't want to fall asleep on him because he's just waiting for that moment.
I don't know about you, but I noticed this last year. I mean, last year when Messi came up to NYCFC, he had a terrible game. He was actually, I think, the lowest rated player on the pitch, like a 5.8 rating. But what I noticed about Messi, which I found really interesting, is I think he...
Really quick, Joseph, yes, he has.
Oh, yeah. Something started a game for Botafogo. So
yeah, he has. It's but Joseph is not the best source for accurate information.
ooh, you're hitting the guy that just subbed to the channel. Really?
No,
You're
come
hitting the guy that
on,
just subbed to the channel. He's
come
like unsubscribe.
on.
So, but what I was going to say is that Messi. What I found interesting when I was watching him is he walked a lot. You know, I mean, he for the most part, I'm not sure if this is how he normally plays, because it's hard to always sometimes tell if the camera's not on him. But if you know, in his case, he walks and then suddenly decides to take off in a sprint and goes from snail to gazelle. And in the process, I think it lulls opponents into a false sense of security because you take your eyes off it while you're focused on all the movement going on. And he's just very subtly, just stealthily walking in the background, and it just goes. And it was a really interesting approach that I saw from him. And I'll be interested to see what he basically comes back again. But all right, I gotta check this.
No, I'm checking right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna check this too.
So Santi Rodriguez started in a 1-0 loss in the Copa de Libertadores Group A. Lineups right there. Right there. But it's okay. I mean, I don't know. Listen, this is what I meant about the comments. Yeah,
that's fair. So anyway, so Halen's like, I'm done. I'm never coming back.
No, what? This is home. Joseph is he's what we call in the business a contrarian. You know, I would love Joseph's take on
everyone is welcome in my eyes.
Yeah, they are.
We are all, dude. You know me. You know me as I get.
I know. That's why we work, because we're polar opposites.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we're polar opposites.
You're the yang to my yin. I think that's how it works out. Yeah. Is that the right? Did I get that right? So
I think it's problematic that you assigned me yang and you yin, because yang is the black one and yin is the white one.
Oh shit! I didn't even think about. I was thinking like. Oh shit! Ebony, ivory, working together, and but it was one of those things. I think because yang is the masculine and yin is the feminine, wasn't that? Isn't that
no? Right? Yin is the masculine.
Oh shit! I didn't have that backwards. God damn. So yeah, okay. You're the. No.
We can say
you're the guy. I'm the girl here. So
I'll stick with the yang.
I have basically, in my case, I've been told I have feminine energy. I don't know what that means, but.
There you go. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It means you're what is it? You're not oppressive. You don't take up too much space. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Masculine energy demands too much space.
But that's a different matter. But no, it was one of those things. Some tarot card reader back in like 2003 was like, "You have a lot of feminine energy." I'm like, "Cool. Thanks." So
until we hit a certain topic that's taboo, he's a sheep again thing. What? What's that about?
Let's see.
Davi.
He's either talking about Joe or me. I'm not sure. Anyway, so about those Mets, I basically Juan Soto's off to a little bit of a hard start right now. Did Aaron Judge homer today? But you know what? Credit. I want to mention something. Rich Mancuso had a really good point. That credit to the grounds crew. They made that look really, really good today.
It's gonna look great until we have to start sharing.
Yes.
100%.
But I mean, next week will be interesting too, because Citi Field has that dirt patch. This kind of reminds me a little bit when like the Oakland Raiders used to play. Back in Oakland.
Davi, don't get no drama here. This is no drama. We're talking. It's all ball, Davi, all ball. Keep it funny. But I wanted to go through. I wanted to go through the guys and kind of just give quick little comments on the games that they had today.
Fair enough.
I'll start up top. Alonso. Alonso has these games where, listen. Alonso is our talisman, right?
Yes, yeah.
He's still one of our top 3 best players on the team, a guy that we rely on for anything good. That said, he's still exiting that phase of his development as a player where he can ghost, right? He has some games where I don't know if I feel like it's a mental thing where he just kind of feels like I'm not getting enough service, so he feels like he's not getting enough service, so it kind of kills his motivation to do just about anything else. And that's not great, because I'll bring up another guy who by no means is his competition, but whose other qualities I love, Munsef. Now, what Munsef lacks in goal scoring ability, he absolutely makes up for in all the things. He's a consummate, like I said earlier to you, or I can't remember who I said this to. He's a consummate professional when it comes to playing his position. He doesn't just look to score goals. He looks to score goals, but he also looks to make selfless runs to keep the back line honest. He is willing to come and help possess the ball now, drop in into midfield. He absolutely loves pressing and is very efficient at it. So again, I was one of the biggest bench Munsef guys last year, but I got to give credit where credit's due, that he's very good at that. And to compare him to Alonso, I don't know if he's so willing to press. I don't know if his work rate is high enough for that. I don't know. He's a lot better in combination. But games like today where he just feels a little demoralized or just kind of becomes a passenger, he just doesn't feel like really involving himself too much. And it's disappointing from one of your most important players when they just become disinterested. There was even a point where Maxi made 2 or 3 runs in behind, flashing for the ball. And it made me think back to when those first couple of games where Kylian Mbappe came into Real Madrid, and he wasn't willing to make those runs in behind, and Jude would make the runs in behind and be super loud and be theatrical about it, about making those runs. And it felt almost as if he was trying to make a point, like, hey, we need someone to do this. So Alonso would just be walking. I was watching him. He was walking a lot. And, I get it. You're not getting service and it's frustrating, but you still got to keep your work rate honest and do your job with some integrity, I feel like I'm being super critical, but that's the God's honest truth.
Yeah. By the way, this is the player ratings today from FotMob. So
Maxi definitely, I say he had a good game. Keaton obviously had a good game. Julian Fernandez.
Yeah.
Julian Fernandez.
Came out at 40 minutes. That was where a lot of it was, like I said, it comes out early like that.
But it's the right thing that happened, because Julian benefited from a disciplinary action that Pascal took against Ojeda, right? So that disciplinary action happened, and then it overlapped with him finding some form, scoring a goal, assisting a goal, and back-to-back games. And that's great. And when a player has a hot hand like that, it's hard to justify benching him in favor of a guy who didn't show up on time. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
But when we really take a step back, and now that it's cooled off, his form has cooled off, is drastically cooled off. When we look objectively at Ojeda and Julian, neither of them are ready per se, right? Neither of them are ready. But when we're talking about all the, a player that's not ready, quote unquote, like as far as the intangible stuff, like, know-how, IQ, understanding the game, feeling the flow of the game, stuff like that, the nuanced stuff. You got to wonder, what is it that they offer that's obvious to see, right? Like a player who's tall and can jump high, or can run fast, or is physically strong, like Justin, right? Justin isn't the most intangibly talented or gifted player, but he's very obviously gifted with his strength and his jumping ability and height. You know what I'm saying? But you look at Julian, you look at Ojeda, only one of them offers a tangible quality, and that's Ojeda. Ojeda offers that verticality, that pace, right? Julian isn't very fast. He, he's techie, but he doesn't use it in efficient ways. He kind of is a possession dead end of sorts. The ball comes to him, and a lot of times he loses it. And he's streaky when it comes to, being a scorer or an assister. You never know what kind of game you're going to get from Julian. Whereas, like, you kind of know what you're going to get from Ojeda every time he's on the pitch. You're going to get a guy who's willing to hustle. He's got a deep engine. He presses hard, right? And he's not selfish. So he's always trying to create for somebody else when given the opportunity to do so.
KP, I don't know. I'm always pulling for Julian. You know, every one of us has that Julian. Monsef is my Julian.
Monsef
is my Julian. I'm sorry. Dude, you know I'm telling the truth in my feelings here. You know.
I would to Davi's point, absolutely, I would start Ojeda in the next game. Without a doubt, I'm starting Ojeda in the next game. Julian has cooled off too drastically and is, at this point, too frequently a passenger in games, and you can't have that from such a crucial point on the wing. Like, we play through our wings, you know what I mean? So you can't be that cold and that inconsistent in that role.
Let me ask you a question here. I've been looking at this. They ran out with a 4-2-3-1 again today. NYCFC did. Now, they have run with a 4-2-3-1 every single match, with the exception of Atlanta, where they ran a 4-3-3. Are they becoming predictable? Predictable.
Yeah, for sure. But predictability is something to solve predictability, right? And by the way, possession teams that insist on holding possession, they're the most predictable. You know what their flow of possession is going to look like, right? Unless you have a dynamic passer, someone who has crazy passing range, someone who knows which spaces to inhabit and how to quarterback from the right spots, right?
You know, I mean,
and so I think we're missing that. I think we don't have a guy in our midfield right now. Like, Maxi tries, but I don't think Maxi has that passing range, especially not as he's starting to rust up a little bit. And I think Keaton is he progresses the ball, carrying the ball, and he's a decent short to medium passer, but I don't know him to be a very dynamic long range passer, or just being able to change the nature of the pass depending on the situation. And I think that's what's really missing. Just a guy who has a deep passing bag from deep areas of the pitch. It doesn't have to. I don't think it needs to be a 10. Actually, I think it could be a 6 or an 8. But yeah, that's really the overall point I was making there with where I was landing there.
Keaton did have the goal. I mean, listen, when you saw Keaton's goal tonight, you saw him rush in on that rebound.
Sure.
You know, and I have noticed that NYCFC has been better with that this year, where they're scoring off a lot more rebounds than they would have, under Cushing's era. Yeah. So I do like that goal that happened. I mean, it was too little, too late. It was 89 minutes in. There was no celebration. Keaton took that ball and just sprinted back to midfield, if you saw it. But they're doing a lot better on second chance opportunities now.
Yeah.
They never did in years past. And I like that, because that's where so many goals can come from. It's just from, not effort. Just basically what you set up, but mistakes, miscues, and off balance opponents.
And just making sure that your opponent is at least weathering a storm. Like, for like a lot of the shots, we got shots, but a lot of our shots weren't even on target.
Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? 25 shots tonight, 4 on goal. Yeah. Now, the most lopsided, I looked at the numbers on this. The most lopsided differential that ever happened was NYCFC. I think it was last year against Nashville. I know the numbers. It was 23 shots, 2 on goal. They went 16 shots without a shot on net. 17th one finally went there.
Yeah.
So it's something where that was a concern, but at the same time, if they're getting that many shots, they're getting the opportunities. There needs to be a little tweaking going on. Yeah. Because 25 shots is nothing to sneeze at.
It's not. It's really not. And it's concerning that we couldn't get any on target. But the overall point I was making there is that listen, not every shot has to be a goal, obviously, but most of the shots have to trouble the keeper.
Yes.
It's to get him just a little bit more and more frazzled.
Play off the field a little bit. Yeah.
Not every punch has to land. It's just to make him put the guard up and try to protect himself. And in so doing, eventually he puts his guard up and you hit him in a different way. You know what I mean? So it's concerning that we only had 4 on target after 25 shots. And it says a lot that how many of those shots were Alonso?
I don't know, actually, to be honest with you. I actually don't have that answer on that one. I'm sorry.
But that was more rhetorical. I doubt that he had many.
Yeah, I don't think he did anyway. Yeah. But I mean, in this case here, also those 4 came. Keep bumping that thing. Those 4 came, I think, 70 minutes in. Or 75. So when they finally got a shot, then they really started to go with it. They had that level of consistency for more. For 2/3 of that match, they could end up with 12, 15 shots on goal. In which case, you're walking away with a minimum 3. You should be walking away with a minimum 3 goals there.
So I want to look at this comment from Joseph. In the next 3 seasons, will we see right-footed players at right wing and left-footed players at left wing? Funny enough, Joseph, that's a trend that's increasing in the Prem right now. What you mean to say is traditional wingers. A lot of coaches right now in the Prem are using traditional wingers, and it's because they see more success in a vertical style of play. With everyone trying to possess the ball, when you possess the ball, what you're doing is you're conceding a lot of space behind you. So if you play a more vertical game, if you play traditional wingers, if you play a left-footed player on the left, what he's likely to do is attack down the line rather than cut inside. And that is creating situations where players on the opposite side of the pitch or in the middle of the pitch can commit to making runs to get onto passes in behind. He only watches Rex.
I have never seen Wrexham. Which is funny because I like Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds, but
for me, it's just to respond to Joseph's comment here about wingers. It's all up to the coach and how he wants to play. Like, it seems that Pascal wants to have one inverted and one traditional, which I kind of like because you need that variety. You need to be able to attack wide and down the line when you have to, but you also need to be able to have creative guys who can cut in and overload the middle and act as pseudo 10s. So you don't know where the creative danger is going to come from. I wouldn't say it's. I mean, who am I to say that 2 traditional wingers or 2 inverted wingers are, it's not the way to play. We saw Real Madrid win 3 Champions Leagues back to back with inverted wingers on both sides. So, who am I to say that? But I also, like I said, it comes down to the coach and how they want to play and what we have. For me, when he's healthy, Malachi, I invert him on the right.
Oh God, I missed that kid. Saw him in passing tonight. I don't know if you saw him.
Yeah. He was in the cafeteria. Yeah.
Well, he was. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, him, Max Murray, and this other kid. I can't remember who it was.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Yeah, no, I saw him when the mix zone was happening. He was kind of walking behind all of us. Still had a gigantic grin on his face, though.
Yeah. He's such a warm kid, and he's got a good vibe. And I think he's the future. I think he's going to be like the kind of senior leader guy for when Maximo, Johnny, and Max Murray and all those guys kind of mature and take their thrones. You know what I mean?
Stay healthy.
Yeah, just stay healthy.
Just stay healthy. Don't let that leg injury. Listen,
Nico Cavallo,
That's what worries me about a leg injury like that too. It's when you have it that early, it can set an injury tone for life.
Yeah, it can.
As a Devils fan, I look at what happens to Jack Hughes right now. He's out for the year. And he's injury prone. Team's doing okay, but you miss that presence. And with Malachi, he was such a unique presence because not just the speed, which was ungodly, but it was the fact that he had such a good energy, a good vibe, and
what I liked is his decision making. He rarely ever made bad decisions.
And he made the rest of the team feel excited to be on the pitch. His energy rubbed off on everybody else.
You're right. Yeah, 100% right. Could you pop the formation back onto the screen really quick? just so that we can Hannes. Hannes had I don't know. It's hard to say he had a bad or good game.
He was just there.
Yeah, he was just kind of there.
He was quiet, but
Yeah. He's just kind of there. Justin, yeah, like I said, I already spoke about the number
now,
6.
One thing here, they gave Matt Freese a 6-6. I'm not sure I agree with that because he did stop 7 of 9.
But you can understand why, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I bump it up to a 7, my opinion only.
I would give him like a 6-9. He definitely had a better game than Hannes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right about the 7 because he had a better game than Alonso, a much better game than Alonso.
Yeah,
Alonso getting a 6. Alonso getting a 6-9 is crazy.
Well, listen, you hit off the crossbar.
No,
what is it? 92%, success rate on a goal on a shot like that. 6-6-9-9.
Yeah. Kevin had a good game. I'm a Kevin stan through and through.
Mm-hmm.
I was unsure about it at first, but Burke. Burke is a real conundrum.
I can't figure him out either.
Burke is a real conundrum because for me, he's without a doubt the go-to second center back. I wouldn't even call him the second one. I think he's tied for first, right? He has great composure, good recovery speed. He has a passing bag, right? You saw it today, actually. He was pinging balls to the wings really efficiently. But he's injury prone. Thus far, it seems as if he's injury prone. And he has this thing about him sometimes where almost like Alonso, where if the game's not going the way he wants it to be going, it feels as if he mentally checks out, and it's a little concerning, especially from somebody who truthfully could be one of the leaders on this team, if he isn't already one of the leaders on this team.
Quiet though. I sometimes forget he's even there.
So, he is quiet, but some guys lead through example, right? And him being consistent is kind of like Maddie. Maddie is louder now. I kind of hot take. Maddie should have the armband. That's just my personal opinion on that.
I don't have a problem with it.
I think
honestly, I was expecting that on this match.
Yeah, same. But it wouldn't do that. It would be too
some kind of a change there. Yeah.
It would be too scandalous. But Maddie, the thing I said this to my to the Fibro guys in our chat earlier, and I'll say it here. Like, for me, a captain or a leader, like a good example, is a player who, even in a bad game, they still look like themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They still doing what you know them to be doing. They're still performing at the level that you are used to them performing at. And Maddie, even though he could have done better with the second shot, it was through traffic. It's hard to say how many keepers really save that. And then the first goal, it's pretty much a tap in. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
But outside of that, like he stood on his head for a good couple moments, and I don't know. For me, he's kind of the soul of this team. He's the heart and soul of this team, in my opinion. Maddie.
Agreed. And I think that's one of those things that he carries his presence behind there, and he has a calmer demeanor. It was funny. I don't know if I told you this, but one of our photographers watched like Matt Freese and then Luis Barraza, back there, and it was such a night and day persona, where Barraza would sit there, scream, rant, swear, at the fight, and then Matt Freese, who was excited, but had a different vibe and a very zen vibe to his energy. Mm-hmm. Even his excitement was very level, and it wasn't. It was such a different, more laid back, more, I think, secure approach.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if Barraza's gotten any time with DC at this point.
It's super unorthodox to make 2 subs in the 40th minute of a game.
Oh, yes.
But I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I think maybe, part of it is coming off a season with a coach who refused to make any subs whatsoever for 90 minutes.
Yep. Farfar comes in the 87th minute.
Yeah, right. So maybe it's a little bit of that, but it also is, that's exactly what the game needed, because you got to be able to recognize that, as a coach, and I guess as a player being subject to these changes, you got to be able to recognize when what you guys have drawn up just isn't working.
Well, not just that, but also it lights a fire under the team to realize, oh crap,
Sends a message. Yeah.
It's that insecurity of knowing that I could be the next one to get subbed out.
Yeah.
And that, like I said, between that and the Alonso miss, suddenly, like I said, out of nowhere, the team woke up and suddenly they kicked it into fifth gear for the first time.
Yeah.
Because originally
it's
third and fourth gear all the way through. So
it's Game of Thrones. There's no plot armor for anybody.
Yeah, really.
You know what I mean? Anybody can go. Anybody can, like, Ojeda, you're late. Okay, you're benched.
Yeah.
And look at what now look at what your responsibility has done. You would have started the next game, but Julian happened to have a great game when you were off.
Yep.
Right.
And they realized fear of loss.
So there has to be some sort of stake, some sort of penalty for playing poorly, and that's why I almost feel like people think that Santi would have cooked under Pascal. I don't think so.
Well, yeah. Well, you have a theory on that also.
Yeah, but I personally think that Santi was or is just one of those stallions you can never tame. You know what I mean? No, I don't care what coach. I mean, maybe if you're oh my gosh, who's the Italian coach, the fiery one? He was once a Chelsea coach.
Oh shit, yeah.
Why am I blanking on his name? I hate this. But you know what I'm saying.
I'm terrible at pulling information.
Conte,
Okay.
Antonio Conte. Like, a real fire and brimstone coach like that. Yeah, maybe he responds to that. But in the MLS, to the average MLS coach, I think Santi just does whatever the heck he wants to do, And sorry?
No, go ahead. Finish your thought, and I got a question for anybody who's watching right now.
Done. Yeah.
Okay. So real quick in this case, and this is, like I said, I'm opening this up to you guys. Let's say next week Philly comes in and rolls 4-1. So basically we talked about 5-1, 3-1. There's a bad history between Philadelphia and NYCFC. If that happens and they get rolled in City, do you think some fans will start doing Pascal out? I'm not saying all. I'm not saying it's going to happen. But do you think some of them will start to murmur a little bit?
Maybe if some do, some could, sure. And if they do, they're idiots.
I'm just saying, could a small contingent start to build?
Maybe, sure, sure. But I think it would be silly because
I'm not saying it's not, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. This is me. I'm not responding to you per se, but to the potential people who might have,
the sheer volume of people. Will a small fraction do it? Out of 10,000 fans, would 50 say yes?
Actually, what's funny? I actually think I wouldn't eliminate the possibility, but I'm 99% sure that no. I think that a lot of the fans are behind Pascal. They could feel that he's the right guy for the job, and they know. I'm sure they have common sense enough to know that to criticize him at this, 7 games in is too premature.
Yeah, it was appropriate. Yeah, well, that one's been going on for how many years now?
Yeah, back-to-back losses at home would be really, really rough, but still not enough to justify.
It's too early in the season in this case, you're saying.
I don't think it's 10+ matches, Joseph. I actually think he deserves a transfer window, as does most of the world when it comes to how you evaluate a coach.
Yeah,
like you wait to see what are the player acquisitions he does and how does he end up using them, and then you start to kind of grade him on that. But he's a president who's inherited the previous administration's economy. You know what I mean? Like, you can't criticize him on how things are going right now because these aren't the players he's picked. He came in and inherited a situation. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Like I said, it was just one of those things that it's been rolling through the back of my mind how much give do they give to him? And would like I said, would even a small contingent start to get vocal on Twitter?
Yeah, probably. I know for sure Joseph would probably start to get vocal.
Boy, you're going at that dude both barrels tonight, man. It's like, Joseph, nice to see you. Thanks for subscribing. By the way, your ass is mine.
Yeah. The winter window is a window, but I
Yeah.
also like that he's taking the time to observe the team and watch the hierarchies form, right? Yeah, I just like that. I like that he's waiting to see the dynamic of the players. And maybe there's a little, I can sense, I don't know why, maybe you can feel this too, Scott. I can sense a little bit of impatience on Pascal's part, maybe with, waiting to see if the team signs players, but I think there's more impatience with like having to constantly field the transfer window question.
Yeah.
I think he seems to be a little bit more impatient when it comes to answering questions about who they could possibly bring in. It's like, I have no answer.
He had
for
that
you.
question tonight. He's like, we're evaluating every option out there. And I think it was tonight he said that, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, but also at the same time, it brings the question of, at what point will he, if nothing happens during the transfer window, will he be a little more vocal outwardly? Saying, I thought we had something right now. I thought there's something in the pipeline. It didn't transpire. I'm disappointed by that. Not saying, Lee, you suck, but something where he kind of just lets his feelings known, just, hard on the sleeve, at least a tiny little bit, in that vein. And I can see Pascal Janssen doing that, where it would be something like, what kind of hope we were going to have something. I'm kind of disappointed we didn't, but this is what we have and we're going to go with it. And that I could foresee him doing that in August.
Yeah. Outside of who were the subs? Tanasiewicz, we talked about him.
Tanasiewicz came in. Bakar came in.
Bakar. So Bakar had this one moment that I wanted to just draw attention to, just out of fairness, because we've all, every single one of us, the guys in the comments and us, we've been super hard on Monsef. Not you, Scott. We know you love Monsef, but and it's been deserved, right? Today, Monsef showed a willingness to drop into midfield, try to get on the ball. Was he very efficient or successful at it? No, maybe not. But there was this one sequence where the team turned and got on their bike on a counter, and he played the ball through to Hannes, perfectly weighted, had a nice little English to it, spun outside for him, and Hannes couldn't really make much of it. But that's not something we saw Monsef do ever. Ever. The occasional straightforward, like down the line pass, absolutely. A flat pass to the wings, sure, right? But to break a line the way he did and have it curve outward into the run of Hannes and just perfectly weighted, I was just so impressed by that. And it made me kind of go, I hope that that's a sign that he's sort of finding his feet. Yeah, that's the same play. And it made me go, okay, I like seeing that. I want to see a striker do that. Like, a striker is not just, hey, go score goals. It's at least not at the professional level. If you're talking about 8-year-olds, okay, yes, hang around the goal and kick the ball into the net when you see ball bounce, right?
Basically, when you're 8 years old, it's an entire pile of bodies and legs that just chase the ball. That's all we did back in the day, man.
But at the professional level, you can't just be, your focus can't just be goals. I'm sorry. Like, you have to do, there's two other phases of play that you have to play a role in, and Monsef being able to play a role in that middle third by creating a shot on goal for Hannes was very, truth. I agree with that, Joseph. That's their number one priority. It's, I likened it to a goalkeeper, right? A goalkeeper, yeah, he's great with his feet. He has a great long throw. He knows how to organize the defenders and bark on everybody and get everyone motivated and tell them to press. But he can't save a shot to save his life. He has a 0% save percentage. That's not a goalkeeper you want, right? So there's a number one priority for sure. But if you're talking about a keeper who has an average save percentage, and can't do any of the other things, he's not good with his feet. He's not a great thrower of the ball. He can't organize and he doesn't motivate guys. But then you have another guy whose save percentage is average, but he's good at all those things. You're going to start the other guy, right? So all those intangibles are what I want to see from Alonso, a lot more from Alonso, but I like to see the occasional flash of brilliance from a player who's struggling. Same thing with Tana. Tana was great today in emergency defense, and he was able to hone. He's a bit erratic. He was able to hone that erraticness that he has into being just a pest, and that's what I want from him. You don't have a yellow, go out there and get a yellow. That's what we want from you. Get a yellow. And there was a third guy who
Johnny Shore came in late for Tristan Hack.
Johnny Shore. Yeah. Johnny Shore, right? So
you give him a little bit, like I said, you still give the kid a little bit of window here.
Wasn't Risa on a yellow?
Yeah, Risa did have a yellow.
Yeah, Risa was on a yellow, Davi, and the way that the game was going, where we were defending a lot on the counter, you don't want to risk Risa picking up a second yellow in emergency defense, so that's why you sub him out.
Look what happened with Kevin O'Toole a couple weeks ago. So, with Soul 9, you got to score. Listen, sure, Alonso will get his. I predicted 13 goals on the season, which is
he's talking about Munsef. He's talking about Munsef.
Yeah, sorry,
dude. Listen, I don't think anyone's really disagreeing with you on that, Joseph. Yeah. Absolutely, the number one priority is you got to score goals. That's why, for me, Munsef is very far from being anywhere near in contention for the starting job of the starting number 9 job at New York City FC.
Oh, I don't think he's. I would almost move him off to the side.
I would put him on the wing, I would play him in a 2-striker.
So basically, the same thing that Minnesota did tonight.
Yeah, I would play him in a 2-striker. Minnesota is the only team, to my knowledge, right now that's playing a 2-striker system.
It works
in the league, and it works.
Olo was saying, my God, that tandem.
And it works. And I think actually Alonso, there's a bag that Alonso has that he's not able to tap into really, where I think he's actually a decent creator from the front line. We saw a bit of it when he was playing for Costa Rica just recently.
To be honest, I expected when Santi went, I expected they were going to bring Munsef up front.
Okay.
Do 2 in the front or even 3. But
yeah. But yeah, it's I would love to. I can't wait till Malachi comes back. I would, for him, he's without a doubt the starting right winger. Invert him on that right side. Hannes starts on the left. Have him go traditional. That's kind of how I would have it. Yeah.
Oh my God. Putting me in a position here.
That's easy for me.
I think I can Gabe.
No, Buckar.
You don't think so?
Yeah, but and the reason is still the intangibles because Gabe Siegel wasn't clinical enough for me.
You think so?
And he's not as good at the other stuff. He's not a good presser of the ball, not a good possessor of the ball. He doesn't run channels to keep the back line honest. So, yeah.
Fair. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I know. Hot take. Possibly bad take, but I don't.
It's just a theory. Gabe's over in Houston. I think Houston now too.
I think the data would. But if you guys really, really want to get those questions answered, you should look at their underlying numbers, and it will tell a different story for you.
Yeah. What's Gabe been doing this season?
Yeah, KP, I agree with that. Gabe wasn't at the level.
I feel like it could have been there. I mean, listen, I'm not sure how much game time he's been getting with Houston this year. He's got 3 games. Wow. He's only got 25 minutes over there in Houston. Yeah, not a whole lot going on over there. Yeah, 25 minutes in 3 matches.
I mentioned Gabe in clinical because for Gabe to take the edge, he would have to be way more clinical than Munsef, and I don't think he's that much more clinical than Munsef, to be honest. I don't think he's I think Munsef is definitely takes the cake when it comes to the yips in that regard. But yeah, Gabe was not, some dangerous, threat in front of goal like that for it to be such a clear in a way, pick in Gabe's favor. So when it comes to goal scoring, that's out of the question. We're not even debating that. Neither of them are great goal scorers. So what about the other things that they're good at? What about the other things that a striker needs to be good at? And I think when it comes to the other things, Bakrar is the better of the two when it comes to the other things.
Interesting. All right.
All right. I absolutely disagree, but yeah.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm also just a little bit surprised that you were like, you didn't say Bakrar with the shits.
Huh?
I'm also surprised you didn't call me out on that one either.
Well, no, yeah. It's funny. Wait, you said Gabe? You said Gabe?
I did say Gabe. You said Bakrar.
And I said Bakrar. The guy,
Yes,
I was the one who, after the Portland game,
I was waiting for you to be like, I'm surprised you said that. But nah, I'm just sitting there waiting for a comment. I didn't get anything.
Wait, you tried to bait me out?
I'm a master at it. What can I say? So,
yeah. Are you sure you're not secretly Joseph?
No, actually, met Joseph tonight, I believe.
Oh, did you? Joseph was there tonight?
What's that? I believe he was. So, no, but yeah, if you guys don't know, I'm a guy that usually gives my lanyards away to little kids. So, because I just because on this side of it, we get lanyards every single match.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
I collect all of them.
What's that?
I collect all of them.
Joseph
had a great game today, dude.
Hat trick, dude. I love San Jose. I think that's a great, fun team to watch.
I put out a short little blurb at the start of the season when Joseph was a free agent, and I said, out of these 3 guys, who would you want to bring into the team? And I picked Joseph, Raheem Edwards, and Joao Paulo from Seattle, and everybody was like, "Oh, Joseph's washed, and he's old, and his knees and his." I'm like, dude,
between him and Chicho out there with Bruce Arena, by the way.
Dude, Joseph Martinez is one of the most prolific goal scorers this league has ever seen. Yeah. A tiger, an old tiger or a wounded tiger is still a damn tiger, bro.
Yes. And you look at, like I said, that squad, and it's funny because I had a conversation with Ted Ramey, who's the play-by-play guy for the Earthquakes, and he's excited too because that team has been infamously bad the last few years. So between the addition of those 3, suddenly that is a team that, will they win the West? No. Will they get to the playoffs? Yeah, probably. At least build this to get, 6th, 7th, 8th place, something like that, because they've been a cellar dweller for the last 3 or 4 years now. So it's finally a chance for San Jose to get excited about something because shit knows the Sharks aren't going to be that team. Dude, the San Jose Sharks are garbage too. So it's like at least San Jose has something to be excited about.
But this is why relegation would be such an interesting thing, right? If San Jose Earthquakes got relegated, the Sharks got promoted.
I got to throw that up, man.
Newborn kittens.
Wow. So.
Oh my gosh.
But no, I mean, like I said, between him and Chicho Arango, and obviously Bruce Arena trying to rebuild his career after his issues that were happening in New England, it was one of those things that for me, I can't help but be excited for a team like that. So good for them.
So Joseph said he did meet you. Oh my goodness, God.
Yes. By the way, he told me that Keaton Parks and his wife wrote a book, a children's book. So the next time I talk to Keaton, I'm going to ask him about that because I'm really interested to know more about it. So thank you, man.
Hmm.
So I'm actually really, really intrigued by that because I didn't know. You know, we talk about pitch stuff on Amazon. Okay, good to know. Yeah, we talk about pitch stuff all the time. We never really talk about like personal life stuff.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, I know he's got the kid. He's, you know, things are going crazy with that and everything like that.
Yeah.
But you know, that's cute. I'll have to talk to him about that. You know, but
Outside of that,
I only have one small, slightly humorous thing, but I don't know if you got anything else.
no, go.
Okay, so this was one of those things that I pulled up. In our case, when it comes to the sports reporter side of things, we are really, really fortunate on this side of the fence. And I think, you know, Halen, you'll agree with me because Yankee Stadium buffet is just obscenely awesome. You know, today basically, I'm gonna cry like how, you know, about basically how awesome this was. But today was what we had: skirt steak, we had Mediterranean chicken, salmon, pasta. The ice cream machine was working. You know, of course, you want to get like
They had the good stuff out
chicken
today.
tenders, fries, whatever it is. You know, they had a deli station, which I thought was amazing. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things that all of us pretty much just sit there and save all our calories for the day for like a match. And Yankee Stadium is top of the pyramid. But what's really funny about it is they don't charge us for this. And why do I
At
say that?
all. Yeah.
Why do I say that's funny? Because the ironic thing is, for the Yankees themselves, this is what they charge the press people to eat the same food we eat for nothing.
What?
Citi Field is almost as high. Citi Field is $12 instead of 15.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, if you
That
basically, because you know when you go in, you have that one guy who wants to check badges and everything like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Between like where like, you know, the line is to get, you know, plates and everything, and that guy is this sign. So it's really hilarious because they charge the employees, and Rich Mancuso, who covers the Yankees many, you know, dozens of games a year. It's funny because he pays for it every time. It's great stuff. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, so where does Aaron Judge's salary come from? But now I don't know. I have to find out what the rest of the league does. If the Phillies do this, if the Royals do this, or, you know, the Mariners. But dude, if you're a Yankee media, they'll charge you $6. If you're a visiting media, they charge you $15.
So Scott, how do you feel about doing this after games?
If I have the energy, you know, to do it, possibly, it would depend a little bit on what time the match is over and what time we get back. My opinion only, and this is the way I just feel about it, being not blindsided by it, but not having spent a lot of time on it, I would open it up to the people actually that are watching in the comments.
That's the intention.
You know, and see what they feel. Would they rather have something, you know, after match, like midnight, we'll say, just for argument's sake, or would it be, dude, listen, a 9:30 match, and then we got the press conferences, then we got to get back to the house. You know, next week it's going to be 45 minutes to an hour for me to get back. Even if the laptop is set up, I mean, maybe I can do like 11:30. So
Sunday at 9.
Yeah, like Joe had the perfect point for this. 7:30 kickoffs could be tough. If it's earlier, hell yeah, we can do it. Yeah. You know, I mean, I think this was a perfect window because
it was
3 o'clock match, 9 o'clock post game. You know, I mean, it works well because, again, it's, you know, because people can just catch it if they need to. I mean, I'll have to think about it. You know, I mean, boy, would I have to really, really start having some caffeine.
No. You've already talked me down. You know,
yeah,
I see the logic, and I see Joseph.
Also,
and
you know, it's funny. I also look at it from the perspective of what the view count would be, because I have been watching the numbers all the way through. You know, and it's starting to dip a little bit now that it's 10:30 at night. But if we started this at midnight, maybe playoff games could be different. I'll be honest. Maybe come later, like match, you know, like decision day or something. Sure, I don't have a problem with something like that. Day games, hell yeah, we can do that. You know, there is there's a 5 p.m. game coming up against Cincinnati, I think, in May.
Okay.
So that would be 5 to 7, 7:30, 8. So we can do 9. That would be prime right after.
Okay.
That could be plausible there.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Kick off a Red Bull is 4:30. Okay. Perfect example there too. Yeah, I mean, if we can figure out a way to make it work, sure. Would I have to IV some, you know, some caffeine into the veins? Yeah, probably. Or take a nap for it. Yeah. So, 3 p.m. Okay, copy that. Even better. Yeah, I love the 3 p.m. start, man.
I love the 3 p.m.
Oh my God, I miss because
Yeah.
it's funny because when MLS, went over to Apple TV and I have some videos coming on that mother coming in this week. Oh boy, we're going to talk about that one in a minute, but I'll tease that one. But when we had pre the Apple TV deal, we had 1 p.m. starts all the time. And I'd message Robin. I'll be like, I'll be back between about 4:30, and bam, even to some press conferences, glorious. And then you have the rest of the night to yourself. But now that Apple TV has pretty much every match at 7:30 at night, and Apple TV, which apparently did not send their crew up tonight and only broadcast remotely. I heard Florida. Someone asked, said possibly Connecticut, but they were not in-house at Yankee Stadium for the match tonight, per an extremely reliable source that all of you would trust as soon as I mentioned the name. Yeah, interestingly. So, but I will be doing some videos this week about what's going on with the league. The $5 offer that exists for Apple TV.
Mm-hmm.
That exists with DraftKings. I'm going to do a video on that one and my thoughts there too, because, yes. So Source Joe instead of Coach Joe. I will not confirm nor deny, but yeah, I got some videos upcoming for stuff like that. I was going to say, who was it? Somebody with I think Bournemouth now. I forgot who it was. Talked about relegation in MLS and why it was a good idea. I'll do a video on
Tyler?
that. Yeah, Tyler. Thank you. So yeah, no, it was one of those things that I got that the DraftKings thing pisses me off, because everybody paid for the Apple TV deal. We paid for the Apple TV deal. They gave us the first year for nothing, and then auto charged me like $69 in February.
Oh, I got it for free this year.
Oh, you pig fucker! What happened?
It was like what was it? It was like a T-Mobile promotion.
Oh, okay. So you did have it through some other promotion in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, because Verizon has that too. But DraftKings, apparently, if you spend $5 on a bet, you get Apple TV for the entire year for nothing. Which, boy, how bad is this situation when you can actually get it for $5 for the entire year when you have Lionel friggin' Messi?
For real. Look at the question from Joe.
Does lack of disclosure about injuries frustrate you guys? Yeah, it frustrates us. Look, you got to protect your players and what's going on, and you can't leak information because anything that you say can and will be used by your opponents. But sometimes I want to know a little bit more, even just for myself. So
I think actually the club's policy on injury transparency, I think, is more about literally their value.
Mm-hmm.
I think they don't want to have receipts of damaged goods so that they can
when you ship them off for money, right?
Yeah, exactly. Literally. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's actually a really good point there too. Again, anything you say can and will be used against you.
Like I can argue that this $6 million price tag that you set for him is not fair because he had a 3-month leg injury or a torn hamstring or something, and that could pop back up at any time. So I should pay probably like 4 or 5 or 5.
Well, we talked last week about James Sands' latest injury and how it's going to be at least 3 years minimum before Europe will even sniff at him.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Davi, goodness gracious.
Like what, chicken?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, chicken breast, yeah.
Exactly. KFC and Popeyes. Yeah.
I can't do fried chicken. Grilled chicken only.
What, really?
Nope. Fried chicken runs through my system. Chicken tenders I can have in small portion, but Popeyes, dude, my skin, I can physically feel my skin crawling.
I would comment
this thing going on.
I would comment on my affinity for fried chicken, but not in this political climate, to be quite honest with you.
Well, I'm not touching that one. So, but yeah, when my wife wants Popeyes, I have to have like macaroni and cheese or mashed potatoes, which the mash is fantastic. But no, I cannot have fried chicken. It just hits my system weird.
Yeah. I like it. You know what I like? I like grilled chicken Caesar salads.
As long as there's no anchovies in it, I can live with that. So,
you don't like anchovies?
I don't like anchovies, no. I don't like the smell of anything fish. So it's funny because fish and mushrooms are the things I kind of dislike the most. And it was funny when I was a financial advisor way back in the day. I had one client who would always make me a food dish because they were trying to be nice and sweet, and
Yeah.
it was always this pasta dish, and it was just loaded with like anchovies and mushrooms, and I'm like, they're giving me money, I have to like this, and I just muscle through it. But have you ever eaten food without swallowing it?
Yeah. No,
You
without chewing it. And
Oh yeah,
only
I'm
swallowing
sorry,
it.
not chewing.
Yeah.
Dude, it
yeah,
was
yeah.
so rough. I hated it, but you know what?
Yeah.
It made him happy. It was just, it was a
Yeah.
nice household. They were a good bunch of people, and I'm like, yeah, it's amazing.
Dude, I used to not like anchovies. My wife is from Spain, and anchovies is a huge deal there. And anchovies with some bread and tomatoes and some wine, yo, dude,
It's
it's
you know what? It
perfection.
makes it. She loves them both. When she'll cook lunches, I can smell like that or curry throughout the entire house for like a week. And it's like, oh, dude, really?
Yo, once you cook curry, it's in the house for a week, for real.
Dude, yeah, it is literally the smell of curries in this house for like 3, 4, 5 days straight. And she's like, I was making my lunches for the week. I was like, I know.
Yeah, man.
There's just some smells I just hate, man. But I don't know. But like I said, as far as like Yankee Stadium goes, I mean, that's like the highlight. Like I said, when I got back to the house, Robin asked me, she's like, so how was the game? I'm like, the food was good. She's like, oh, that bad? I was like, yep. Oh, Pascal Janssen loves curry. All right, good for him. So, yeah, MLB has disabled list, or actually, I think injured list now. And wasn't there a player with LA that like went on the IL because he tripped Gunny out of the shower? Yeah, who was it? Yeah, Freddie Freeman missed a game after a little mishap where he slipped entering a shower at home, aggravating his surgically repaired right ankle.
All right.
That's why you got to
Maybe
give up
it's-
showers for Lent. So,
Maybe it's time we lock it up.
dude, it's almost 11. Okay, yeah, let's call it at this point. I didn't even run a commercial tonight. Whatever, do it later. So, all right. So anyway, I'm Scott. Halen, do you have anything else?
Keep on the lookout for some videos and pieces that we have in the pipeline. You guys are gonna like it.
Yes, and tomorrow I will have Pascal Janssen's press conference, probably 10 or 11 a.m. I think I'm going to probably set that for. I'll work on that as soon as I get back upstairs in a minute, but I'll have that up for you guys, and more videos on the horizon. Like I said, I'm already going to be talking about the relegation thing. I'll be talking about the DraftKings thing because so anyway, thanks as always. I appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Stay well, and we'll see you guys next week at the latest. Be good. Bye.
Peace.